What's going on, guys? We're going to be doing a VOD review here today from a Silver Sentinel main. He's going to be playing Chamber this game. On the ICEBOX here. So, okay, right off the start, we're going to be looking at this utility purchase here. You can see that he's decided to go ahead and buy all 8 of his Sheriff shots here, leaving none left over for his trademark, which is Chamber Slow. You definitely want to be buying this slow, especially since it's only 200 credits. You can afford 6 out of 8 Sheriff shots on the first round, so buy the slow. That will be leaving your team open to the flank if you don't purchase that. It's like they're setting up for an A hit here, so we're going to see how that goes. Gonna skip ahead here, and we're putting down a card. Okay, that was kind of risky, but the way that you peeked that, I wouldn't say that was the best way to peek it, but he did end up getting the kill. Just...
Many enemies. One enemy remaining.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and pause right here. You can see already the consequence of not buying slow on round 1 ends up giving the other team an advantage here. So you can see that because Chamber opted to not buy slow, the enemy was able to basically flank all the way through mid, wrap around, and then attack the team from the flank. That is definitely an issue, especially on round 1 when everyone has such terrible guns. You definitely want to have someone or something watching the flank, making sure that you don't end up getting cheese like that. Puts them in a 1v1 now because of this flank. Reyna now has full armor in a 1v1 where Viper has 10 HP. It's not looking good for your team. And then Reyna's able to end the round with a win for her team. Just want to be mindful of your utility, especially as a Sentinel. It's kind of your job to watch the flank, make sure that your team is able to get on site safely without having to worry about someone coming from behind like that.
Their omen may be a nightmare, but I was never scared of the dark.
Okay, so we're considering buying a slow here. I like that. A good change. An interesting thing about Chamber is that he has the ability to shut down more expensive weapons on a eco round like this because of the fact that his utility offers him a Sheriff at usually a cheaper price than what an actual Sheriff would cost. So on this round, you should be looking to get a little bit more aggressive here, especially with your card. So we know that one of them likes to push up into nest. Gonna be clearing that this time. That's good. Okay, so another big thing when you're entering into site, even though you're playing Chamber here, we're not playing a duelist. However, when we're walking up taking space, we want to make sure we clear the corners before we do any type of utility, any type of planning, anything like that. You see, we had an enemy actually sitting right here behind Jen in this little spot right here. It's tucked away. Can't really see him. Making sure we clear corners like that is going to win us a lot more gunfights, win us a lot more rounds. Getting caught out like that is probably the worst thing that could happen to you. Just make sure you're clearing those corners.
I don't know why we wouldn't push side.
Or taking space.
That part confused me.
See your Raze is still a little bit further behind, which I understand the frustration.
Sounds like nest.
In a lower elo lobby like this, it's just sometimes one of those things where you have to do it yourself. A really good tip for a lower elo lobby is you want to think about the match like how can I accomplish tasks that my teammates should be doing effectively without sacrificing much of my own role, right? A lot of the time what ends up winning rounds is getting things done that need to be done, and not necessarily by your role but just in general. So similarly to how you walked onto site and began planting, if you were to just combine that with just clearing a couple more angles there instead of having your Raze do it, which obviously she should have, that could have ended up with you alive. However, it is an eco round, and you guys ended up winning, which is very good for your team.
Dude, that almost scared the shit out of me.
I'm gonna go with a Vandal. We'll have 1k left.
Just let loose.
That works.
Okay. I'm not a fan of this slow spot, particularly because it doesn't give your teammates a lot of time to react to the slow, and it also gives them a lot more space in the flank to work with. A better place to put your slow is right here. The reason being is because if you were to look at the zone where the slow kind of reaches, it's essentially like this. And if you try walking through flank, you're gonna have to walk either this direction or this direction. And either way, you're gonna have to essentially walk through this giant circle where your slow has been placed. Now, by putting it right here, if we just go ahead and clear this, by putting it where it's at currently, right? The enemies are given the opportunity to essentially walk all the way up to this point and all the way up to this point without having to really contest any util. And so when trying to perform a rotation back around, then we have to worry about the issue of enemies holding close angles where we wouldn't expect them to usually be. Either way, we're gonna go A again. Nothing too crazy here. Just gonna be making sure to clear angles. Go ahead and put a card down again.
Still inside. Cutting their vision.
One was usually hard right. It might still be there.
Teleport's ready.
Good comms coming out.
TP out.
We're gonna go ahead and get plant this time and TP away safely.
I got flank as well.
Well done.
Raptors. Raze also Raptors.
One enemy remaining.
Nicely done. This is an example of a round that should be a win. It was played out pretty well. The comms that you delivered to your team or were able to communicate in general were pretty useful. Obviously, there wasn't someone behind Jen that time, but just the fact that you mentioned that allows your team to play off of it, which is good. We're gonna do this slow again. This is somewhat of a recurring theme, I believe. It's just something to work on. Just want to think about what your slow kind of affects in terms of like where it's placed. I'm gonna go ahead and skip ahead a little bit here. Looks like we're going B this round. Oh, wait a minute. Let's rewind a little bit. Huh. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna be heading B. Reyna's lurking mid. Reason why I rewinded is because she's able to get a pick here. Let's see how that goes.
Omen mid.
Okay. So essentially what just happened mid is something that you can reactively play off of. What it looks like happened, if I'm not mistaken, is Omen actually walked through mid and went this way, right? And ended up dying right here. So the reason why that is important is because you want to think about how is the other team playing on ICEBOX, right? Typically, you're going to have either someone right here or right here. And then the other player is going to be somewhat around like kitchen, essentially. So yeah, basically, you're just going to have to worry about these two people, right? Playing on site. The fact that the mid player was able to walk down mid and then was killed consequently for that, it actually means that there are maximum, unless they're stacking, maximum of 2 people on B site. And what that means for your team is that essentially you have cut the map in half, and now your team is able to perform a full rush and take site essentially for free, 5v2ing these players at B. Then you can spot out the Reyna blind from the flank so she gets traded, but it doesn't matter. You guys have all this space.
Teleport's ready.
Planning. One's coming flank stage.
Spike planted.
Two are
That's
flank, two are
One
flank.
enemy remaining.
One should be coming into this cubby.
You guys cleaned that up pretty nicely. Well done.
Time to stock back up.
I like to have Spike because it just, I feel like it makes sense for me to have Spike. I can just TP out.
That works.
So
I don't know what
that is true. What our chamber here is saying is that essentially he wants to have Spike because he feels like he can get out for free. Although I do agree with that to some extent, I do also think that Sage is a good person to have the Spike. Reason why is because essentially if we have chamber playing mid, right? Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and assume that you're set up here, right? You are able to essentially lurk up. And now your TP goes through walls, right? So let's assume you have a TP like this, right? And then you have like a card maybe right here. Okay? So we're going to walk up mid, right? And if we look at this zone that our TP kind of encompasses, right? Essentially what we can do is walk through this wall, right? And TP from this side right here. So on ICEBOX, Chamber is able to essentially lurk all the way up mid, right? Pressure all of this space. Not only that, but he can also put a card here and TP back to his team after engaging someone all the way over here and then return to A site. So essentially what he can do is he can cut the map in half again, similarly to how we did last time with Reyna, except he has a lot more control of mid. By doing so,
the Sage
you can guarantee a lot more rounds on ICEBOX. Okay.
Cutting their vision.
Yo, get that orb.
Going into a 4v5 now on A site.
What?
Good trade coming out from the chamber. This is looking like a situation where you'd probably want to rotate.
That raise one kicking the ground up.
Regardless, we're going to get 2 here. Making it a
40
2v3.
backside on the raise.
It is just not Jet's game too.
Last player standing.
I don't understand.
Spike down.
Okay, so let me explain why you died here. So basically, we're looking for an A hit, right? And our teammates are dying left and right, kind of just lacking numbers at the moment, right? And then it's at this point where it's a 2v3 or 2v2 here, and we turn around realizing that we don't have the spike, right? You never want to turn your back to the angles where your enemy could be, right? Even if you're moving towards like a direction away from them, you want to always be facing in the direction of them. The reason why is because just like as we saw just now, we ended up getting swung
One
on,
enemy remaining.
leaving our teammate open to a 1v2. Let's see how Viper fares in this 1v2 here, with Ray still alive. And then she ends up having to fight this Ray solo, ends up dying, unfortunately. So we're going into another A hit here. Now,
One's back there. One's
I'm just going to quickly pause here and just point this out very quickly. I noticed most rounds, no one's really pressuring mid like at all. And the reason why this is an issue is because the way that we're hitting site, we're all 5 just grouped up right here, right? Now, what does that mean for us? Well, if we look at ICEBOX and how the rotations work, right? Usually the kitchen player will be rotating in the most standard way, which is through CT. But typically, someone who's playing on B will be kind of pretty far back, right? So typically how they're going to rotate is underneath tube, and then they're just going to go through screens. So this is a very long rotation, but you know what's a longer rotation is to rotate this way. That's an even longer rotation, right? So just based off this information alone, usually we can deduce that at least one player is going to rotate through mid. Now, what that means for us is that as a chamber, right, we can just be giving our spike to Sage here. and then playing on this angle, holding for the rotation through mid, catching these people off, and then giving us the advantage early on without having to take such a risk as five pushing A every round.
Pretty sure I saw a yellow head in there.
Just a theme that I'd like to point out.
Eliminate.
Sage's gonna go ahead and get one, making it a 5v4. Pretty good for your team here, moving forward.
Planning.
You are powerless.
My bot's offline just in case.
Flawless.
Perfect.
Nicely done from your team. One thing I would like to see out of you is playing a little bit more aggressively off of your cards. I do understand that we have our chamber here TPing away after plant, but it's not always necessary to just card instantly like that. I think it's also good to be able to get some extra value out of your cards by just leaving the timer from being on cooldown and just going ahead and holding it until you actually need to teleport. That round obviously KO ulted, so it was good that he did TP though. Just the thing to think about. You get a little bit of extra aggression with Chamber just due to his utility. We're gonna pick Omen off the start. Really huge pick for your team there, leaving them with no smokes. With 3 duelists like this is just a big hit to their utility. And then KO dying here makes it a pretty easy round for your team to just kind of clean up here.
Yes, Spike Chamber.
Yep, sorry. On it. Planning.
So we have this theme here where we go ahead and put card down and TP away instantly like this.
One's coming flank.
This puts us pretty far back, but we do have an op, so it isn't much of an issue.
Man, and then the last one's flank.
I'll kill Jet right now.
One enemy remaining.
Well done.
Nice.
Was that their best?
This is an example of a round played out very nicely,
Sure.
punishing mistakes like early peeking.
This one should put me right up next to gold, hopefully.
We're gonna go ahead and skip ahead here, going towards A again.
Get out of my way.
There. Enemy spotted A. Reloading. Healing you. Still in sight. Still in sight.
Crosshair placement's kind of low here.
One enemy remaining.
Not really sure where we're aiming at. Looks like we're kind of aiming between 2 angles. That's a big no. So if I just rewind here, just a little bit. I want you to watch this crosshair placement. So we're going to talk about this a little bit here and why this is very important. So right here, okay, I want you guys to watch this crosshair. So we essentially have it between 2 angles. We have it between this rafter angle and this headshot angle underneath rafters. Now, this is a thing that a lot of players do. Essentially, the reasoning for this is because the idea behind it is to aim between 2 angles to be able to flick less distance between the 2. But in practice, it kind of looks a little bit like, imagine someone swings up here or right here. Someone swinging you when you're already holding an angle is going to be pre-aiming where you're aiming. Now, naturally, when you're holding an angle, you have somewhat of an advantage to some extent by knowing like where the headshot should be. But if you're aiming between 2 angles, you kind of negate that advantage by allowing them to have basically an advantageous peak when they do swing. So you want to think about that when you're putting your crosshair. You always want to have your crosshair somewhere relevant to the state of the game.
Spike planted.
It's on my body. I'll be going after. Yeah, going after.
We're going to clean up the round here. Just take another round for us at attack.
Nice.
We're just going into A. Again, a little bit better of crosshair placement. Was kind of low, but it was still somewhere relevant, so it's a better change. All right, so we're aiming kind of high here. So here's another issue. So I want you guys to watch the crosshair placement as we're walking into maze here. This is kind of the opposite of what we just talked about. So as this wall drops, notice how Chamber here is aiming a little bit high. Now, this is a misleading angle. So what I'm going to highlight here is if you guys just look at this little line right here along the slope, right? This kind of misleads a lot of players into believing that the headshot is a little bit higher than it actually is. Now, in practice, someone who's standing in screens is going to swing about right here. So you're aiming a little bit too high here. A good indicator of where the headshot is if you look at the map, you can kind of see like these indentations on the map, which kind of indicate where a headshot angle should be. So just above this little line that I've drawn right here, this is headshot. Similarly, right underneath this indentation on this wall is also headshot. So this indicates to you where specifically you would want to be aiming in that scenario. You can see actually if I were to draw a line from the head position of where his rifle is now, it's almost directly in line with this line on the wall over to his left. Just an interesting thing to point out. Will help you with crosshair placement moving forward.
Jets rafters.
65. I'm gonna be right under that screen.
I think they're both coming from there.
One enemy remaining.
Wow.
These new friends of ours are not too friendly.
Well done from Chamber here, being able to hold screens like that. I like the aggression. It's a very good change. We're going to be recalling our cards here in a 5v4.
40 on.
Jack going to get a pick mid, making it a 4v4. So we're all the way up, pushed up B at the moment. Jet's already down mid. Could be under tube here. Trying to commit to the plant. Okay. So what exactly happened this round? We're going to figure that out here. So we see that we go ahead and recall these cards. And moving forward, we're playing a particularly aggressive angle here. I think the reasoning for this is just due to the fact that since we're playing Chamber, we're kind of used to the aggression that we have with our kit. But because we don't have a card, right, we're kind of pushed up to this situation where someone can swing you from nest and you really have no escape. Now, obviously, holding your team while they're planning is a good thing to be doing. I think holding this wide, especially when you're caught out and while moving and getting wide swung like this, very bad situation to be in. You can see before you're even finished moving, Raina's already swung out and body shotting you. By the time that you're able to adjust, he's able to commit to the kill and then get out for free. So we're going to go ahead and skip ahead here. Okay, and then Jet's going to go ahead and clean up the round. Very unfortunate for your team.
That works.
Jet was able to get a couple picks mid and get value off of that. Okay.
Spike down.
Swap, Jamie.
All right, so we're going to start the round out going A.
You don't like it?
Spike down A.
Reloading.
Dead. Chamber dead.
I have the spike.
Okay, let's rush on the site then.
My ult's not ready.
Satchel out.
Teleport's ready.
Spike planted.
One enemy remaining.
Here.
34.
Shame you had to die, but
We're going to go ahead and rewind this a little bit and just talk about how this engagement kind of went down. So we have a little bit better crosshair placement here. Now, The problem with this crosshair placement, however, is no longer vertically where he's aiming. I want you guys to look at how wide or horizontally he's aiming now. So, like I said, this slope is misleading. So, if we want to talk about this angle a little bit more in depth, essentially what this angle is it has a diagonal incline, right? So, let me just clean this up a little bit. It's kind of like that, right? So, someone who's standing here, the headshot will be basically in line with where this crosshair is, right? But as they're moving up this ramp, the headshot height increases. So by aiming this wide, we need to adjust our crosshair to then be in line with how they're swinging. Since this KO here is wide swinging, you can see he just climbs the verticality way too quickly before Chamber can react,
Shame you had to die.
making it a kind of a messy kill. Still gets the kill nonetheless, so well done with that. We're gonna start at the next round with an op here on A. We have Spike. This is kind of risky, dying here on a belt. I'm gonna be cautious of that. I think this would be a situation where you would give the Spike to Sage.
Here.
Okay. And we're gonna get an insane trade. Insane trade for your team. Able to get 2 for 1 and a res off.
They found my trap.
One's coming flank right now.
All set up. Teleport's ready. Spike planted.
One enemy remaining.
Let me use my ult for the last one.
One thing I like out of our chamber here is the fact that although his teammates are pushing out, if we look at the map here, you see how all his teammates here are just pushed out, just chasing this last kill. This is something that you guys would like to potentially avoid doing. Reason why is because imagine this player, whoever, imagine they're here, right? And they're able to pick off all of these guys, take 1v1s, right? Imagine the situation our chamber would be in if somehow that player was able to take 3 1v1s with the bomb still down, and then put Chamber in a situation here where he has to fend for himself. This is a situation you'd like to avoid. So I really like the Chamber playing on site here, playing the objective, making sure that we win the round. It's a good habit to kind of learn from.
Teleport's ready.
What's ooh? Is it like a mushy watermelon or like the hard ones? Because the hard ones are the best.
Just skip ahead a little bit here.
Need a drop.
Dis-moi.
55 KO.
Nice shot from the Chamber. We're gonna TP away. A little bit slow on the TP, so we're kind of low on HP.
Enemy spotted A.
One enemy remaining.
We're gonna get another one here. Well done from the Chamber. And we're gonna win the defense round, starting on pistol. Huge round for your team. Honestly, a huge round. The only thing I would say this round is maybe TP a little bit sooner, just so that you don't take that free chip damage from the enemy. They obviously didn't kill you there, but it still did make it a little bit riskier to continue holding that angle, which obviously you TP'd after. Something to be careful about. Nice molly by the Viper.
Spike down B.
This is a very good hold for you guys. And a
Tails in.
trade comes out from Chamber. Nice. Making it a 4v2. We have Spike here. This is a situation where you'd probably calm to your team, have them rotate. They're kind of shift walking
One
around,
enemy remaining.
looking for kills here. And Jet's gonna be mid. Gets cleaned up by Raze. Well done. Great double hold by you and Viper here.
Anyone actually do it before? What the hell?
Do what?
Teleport's ready.
You like
So
that?
we're going into this round with rifles now.
Bro.
Opting to play aggressive again on B. Aiming a little bit low here. This is a pretty dangerous angle to be holding on this side.
Oh, damn. Sage, explain yourself.
Yeah.
Let's rewind a little bit and see what happened here.
Oh damn. Sage, explain yourself.
So the KO is going to go ahead and swing directly into the headshot angle that Chamber here is holding. Chamber is going to go ahead and over predict the movement of the KO. He's actually going to go ahead and move straight. A little bit messy of a kill here. I didn't really see an error in crosshair placement as much as I did with just unpredictable movement. Good crosshair placement from our Chamber here. He was able to get the kill. It was a little bit messy. I think a tap fire would have been a little bit more effective, but regardless, the kill was there. We're into a 1v3. This is kind of risky. They know where he's at now. That's the thing to keep in mind. They're all going to be positioning themselves to take 1v1s, or rather 3v1s with Chamber here.
I'm sorry.
Very unfortunate for our Chamber.
Teleport's ready.
We're going to be playing up to yellow again with our card. I like this. I like the aggression on defense. Unfortunately, they're going to clean him up here. We're going to just replay this for a moment and see exactly what the issue was here. So we're readjusting because the Reyna B hopped across. He's already going to be pre-aiming this angle, so swinging a little bit wide for that.
Omen, and Reyna.
I think if we are a little bit more quick on the TP, we actually do get away with that. I wouldn't say that's a bad play, actually. I think that's actually an acceptable angle to take a fight on. I think that the TP just needed to come out a little bit sooner. As soon as you hit a body shot or miss a shot, E, teleport. Just 1-2.
We need to push on to site.
We're going to skip ahead here. Look at our Chamber again. Okay.
His name is also not Jacob.
That works.
Okay. You sound similar, so I was like.
Moving into our last round with a rifle again. We're going to be playing B.
Oh, my bad.
Teleport's ready.
Got our Sloan kitchen. Once again, this angle is pretty dangerous to be holding just because you can't actually see the headshot across from this divider in between the two angles. However, it can be wall banged. Is a thing to keep in mind.
I think backside is.
Okay. Got a little bit too aggressive here. A little bit too aggressive here on this flank. Not taking our time with pushing. When we're flanking, we want to take our time. So notice how our Chamber is pushing up when he's deciding to flank. Right off the start, he's making noise. He's stepped without shift walking. So anyone who's lurking is already paying attention towards this angle here. Moving forward, we're aiming extremely low. Crosshair placement is very low. Should be about here. So as we continue to play, let's watch how far he has to adjust. Here, let me just...
I think backside is.
You guys catch that? So our crosshair is a little bit too low. We're not clearing every angle one at a time. We're kind of walking a little bit too wide here. We need to be cutting the pie, taking 1v1s between each angle and taking space like that.
One of them
ends up getting us killed here, but we do get the game. It looks like.
Spike down A.
Just a thing to keep in mind. You always want to think about your crosshair placement, where you're aiming, if it's relevant to the state of the game. Overall, pretty solid performance from Chamber here. I would say the main things that we want to focus on here are utility usage on attack. Where are we putting our slow? How are we utilizing our cards here to get more value for our utility usage? Obviously, we're TPing away when we're planting, but do we really need to TP at that moment, or can we save it for a more important timing? Maybe we get a pick and then TP away. It does have a pretty long cooldown, so we just want to think about that. Taking advantage of mid control is very important on Chamber, especially on ICEBOX. You have a lot of power and opportunity when it comes to your utility and how it allows you to take space in mid and get away for free. It's similar to Jet in the sense that you have a get out of jail free card. However, it allows you to push up even further than a Jet could and get even further back when you need to get out. So taking that mid control is pretty important as Chamber, because it gives your team a lot more comfort, I would say, in the sense that you can stall a rotation better than almost any other agent in this matchup actually could. Very useful. On defense, I would say we did a pretty good job of playing a little bit more aggressively with our cards. I think that for the most part, we played a little bit better than we did on attack. Our crosshair placement ended up being a little bit lower. I think we want to think about that, work on it a little bit. Other than that, I think pretty solidly well played on defense here.